Hello YouTube, welcome back to my channel, and if this is your very first time, hi, I'm Bonnie, Old Soul Mermaid, and on this channel we do a lot of unboxings and reviews and discuss tarot topics, and this one is kind of a combination video. Today I'm going to be showing you part of my collection which I view as my most diverse decks. This was prompted by a video I saw a couple of weeks ago. It was a panel discussion on Queen Ossette's channel, Oya's Girl, and she had invited a lot of or many tarot channel YouTubers to join a panel discussion about healing, the need for healing in the tarot community, and the need for more diversity. So I'll try to link that video below. It's a long one, warning. It's about two and a half hours long. So, and there were a lot of things covered, a lot of which I don't feel qualified to comment right here and now, but it got me thinking about my deck collection. And I'm also going to link another video where one of the panelists, Sparkle Divine Tarot, she just put out a video, I think today, of her most diverse decks. I'm sad that you know, some of them are no longer available. Hopefully they'll come back and become available again, but I'll link her video below, so if you need some suggestions or more inspiration. So just to comment on the video a little bit, there were a lot of topics covered. There were deck creators in the panel, there were top YouTubers, there were people who had published books, so it was kind of nice to see all those and hear all those voices and faces, and to discover some new channels, which I did. So yeah, I will link that video below. But before I go over my decks, and I don't think there's going to be that many of them. I'm filming the intro first, and then I'm going to film, go to my table and show you my decks. But yeah, I feel like I can't comment on a lot of the videos contents because of where I come from. I just feel unqualified, except, you know, from my experience, I do have a little bit of experience with dealing with some racism, and you might not see it with this face, but I don't know if I've mentioned it before, but my father, I have a Swedish father and a Mexican mother, first generation from Mexico, and yeah, she's the first one of her family to immigrate to the United States. So I noticed from watching her life through my lens. I never experienced any racism firsthand, but I've seen it. I've seen my mother experience it. And I grew up in Los Angeles in, I graduated high school in the 1980s. But I will say, even back then, from where I lived, my schooling was more diverse than what my kids experienced here, mostly going to school here in Central Texas, in the Austin area. So I know that I went to school throughout my career with Hispanics, Asians, Blacks, Indians, Middle Eastern culture. And it was, yeah, even back then it was much more diverse. But with that being said, I'm not going to claim myself an expert in anything. And even because I have Hispanic heritage, I'm not going to claim myself an expert because I have not experienced the things that my mom had experienced. And now my dad was you know that I all come from a Mormon background. My dad went on his mission to Mexico back in the 1960s, and that is where he met my mom. He converted her to the church. They wrote for several years, and then he went to Mexico, married her there in a civil ceremony, and then brought her over to the United States. My mother learned English by watching American soap operas and by befriending the hippies that were in their apartment complex, you know, when my parents were newlyweds. And she became fluent in English, reading, writing, speaking, though sometimes, you know, she'd make some grammar faux pas, but, you know, who doesn't in English? You know, it's a difficult language. And she became a citizen when I was in my later high school years, and I remember how proud she was on that day. So, and I will say that I do feel closer to my Hispanic heritage than I do to the ancestry on my father's side, the Swedish side, because that's where all the Mormonism came from. So just a little bit of background with me, but yeah, my mom, right from the beginning when she had me in a hospital in Santa Monica, California, I came out as a pasty little white baby, and the nurses brought me to another woman in the maternity ward. Here you go, Mrs. Runquist. And my mom was like, no, I am Mrs. Runquist. And it was like, oh. And then when she had two little pasty white babies, my sister and I, you know, she would push us to the beach in a, you know, pram, big stroller, and she was often mistaken as the nanny or the help. So, yeah. My brothers came out with more darker Hispanic coloring. And I saw how they were less favored by my father's side of the family, my grandmother in particular, my paternal grandmother. And I remember this one instance in particular. I must have been 7 or 8 years old, but my cousins, my uncle who had married an Austrian woman, so there was a Swedish man, Austrian woman married. They had kids, my cousins, and they were more favored by my grandmother. One time they came to my house, my cousins were visiting, and my grandmother came over, and my younger brother, who was about 1.5 years or 2 at the time, was standing at the screen door with my cousin, who was about a month older than he was. He was red hair, you know, green or blue eyes, and they were both at the door, gamma, 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 gamma. And my grandmother swooped in and picked up my cousin, Larsy. His name was Lars, and just didn't even acknowledge my little brother, who was just left there, just, you know, not knowing what was going on. And my grandmother took my cousin, went over to the couch and was cooing over him, kissing him, and my little brother toddled over and, you know, was trying to get the attention of my grandmother, wouldn't even acknowledge him. So that kind of thing, you know, it sticks with you. My sister and I, who were favored with the lighter coloring, we did have a relationship with my grandmother, which, you know, we stayed over her house and spent the night. My 2 younger brothers who did not did not benefit from any kind of relationship with my grandmother at all. And I often wonder what would have happened, how my life experience would have been if I had, if my parentage was reversed. Say my father was Hispanic and my mother was Swedish, and I had like the last name of Ramirez or Gonzalez, or like my mom's maiden name, how that experience would have been different. And even if I had, you know, the Hispanic father with the Hispanic last name, if I had Hispanic coloring, how my experience would have been different. I'll never know. I'll never know. But I did watch my mom's experience, and I did see some things and learn some things. So I'm not completely blind to how different races are treated compared to others. I'm not completely blind. So so with that, let's go over to my table and we'll take a look at the cards and what I have. And it's not going to be much. And so I'm going to try to do a little more research in finding more diverse decks for my collection. So with that, we're going to hop on over to the table. All right, so the first one I would say would be the Everyday Witch Oracle. This one happens to be a little bit more diverse, inclusive than the tarot deck, even though I love the tarot deck. Everybody loves that tarot deck. But when you look at some of these images, I think the artist did a little better, and the creator, of depicting, should we get a little bit further down? How about that? That seems pretty good. Body type, age, race. It just seems to be a little bit more diverse and inclusive than the tarot itself. But I'm not, and see age. I like that age is depicted, mature women in this oracle deck, and body types, and I think for this deck that is a big plus. Beautiful, beautiful cards. I know some people say that they have a hard time working with this deck, but I haven't had that problem. All right, so we're going to move right along. I need to come up a little bit more. Are you digging my spread cloth? You see this pattern? It's like tarot cards. I just finished the spread cloth. It's a little one with this fabric I got from Joann's Fabric. It's really cool. All right, the next one is Messages from the Mermaids by Karen K, artwork by Linda Olson. And I have a full unboxing of this deck. So we'll just take a quick look at it. This is, of course, mermaids being a, fantasy, but you can see there is some diversity in body type and in race. I don't think there is in age. And this, of course, is a female-centric deck. But look how beautiful. Look how beautiful this artwork is. And like I said, I have a full unboxing that goes through all the cards. Good body diversity. Yeah, for a fantasy deck, I mean, I think this is wonderful and gorgeous. And this is a Hay House deck. I got it during the sale. It was not very expensive. I think I got it for 10 bucks. And I think it is beautiful. Just beautiful. So some good diversity in that deck. So like I said, I have a full unboxing of this deck. All right, moving right along. the last, I think, Oracle deck in this category, and I think I'm going to zoom up a little bit because these cards are large. This is the Awakened Soul Oracle deck by Ethany Dawn. This is the second edition. I have a full walkthrough unboxing on my channel for this deck. And I know some of the cards have been changed, and I don't have the first edition to tell you which ones they are, but this deck is wonderfully inclusive. Again, more female-centric, does a great job with some body diversity, race. Okay, this card reminds me of the principal dancer with the American Ballet Theater, Misty Copeland. The first, I believe, black female principal ballerina, and she's fantastic, and they took way too long making her a principal. But you see, and I love that there's even a little throw to age and wisdom. I love that. So there's some wonderful inclusiveness, diversity. I love this cardstock too. It just kind of looks more like, you know, the world outside, don't you think? In a magical way. Kind of the world outside seen through rose-colored glasses. I just love this deck. It's one of my favorite oracles. But we need to keep moving right along. Sometimes when I do these types of videos, I just want to look at all the cards, which would take way too long. All right, so now we're going to move into tarot. And the first one on the list is a recent one that I did a full unboxing, and that is the Tarot of the Divine Tarot by Yoshi Yoshitani. Now this deck is a fairy tale, myth, and folklore stories and myths from around the world. Now I have a full unboxing of this deck, but you can see there's different cultures depicted in this deck. So in that realm, yeah, the stories are from all over the world. I love this deck. I just finished reading the book, Beneath the Moon, the separate companion book. But you can see very, very diverse. And you can see the stories from the different cultures. And most of these stories, unless they were like, you know, the European, Western European ones, like from Grimm's or Hans Christian Andersen, I was not familiar with them. They're not the ones that we get in primary school. And it was a joy to read, frankly. And I hope that they're doing, I don't have small elementary school children anymore, but I wish they would do more of that, you know, during a reading time or whatnot, so the kids can get exposed to all these wonderful stories from around the world. All right, so that was the first tarot deck in this category, Tarot of the Divine. Now this deck is so inexpensive. On Amazon, it fluctuates between $12 and $13. Wonderful cardstock, wonderful presentation, sturdy box. The best deal on Amazon. The cardstock is linen, and I'm just floored. All right, the next one in the category, I would put my Dame Darcy Mermaid Tarot in this category. It's fantasy, kind of comic book art, but there's, you know, even though it's mermaids, mostly and sailors, there are different skin tones depicted. Whoops. And before I got this deck, I saw a walkthrough with, I believe it was Tom Benjamin. And he was talking that there's a little bit of a queer quality to this deck. And, you know, I'm not queer, so I don't really have, you know, experience with that experience. But I would have to agree. He said it, and I would, yeah, looking at it, it is. And it's so wonderfully whimsical. It's, I've got some of my reversals in here. There's just, yeah, and you kind of see with the, oh, the Hangman is upright. I just think it has some diversity in this card, even though it is a fantasy deck. Maybe with the sexuality, genders, you know, some of it you don't know. But I would agree with Tom Benjamin's assessment of the feel of this deck. And that's why I put it in this category. And you see there's different skin tones. Even though, you know, it's fantasy, you can't really say what race. The mermaids probably know no race. You know, everybody's equal in their world, right? In a fantasy world, wouldn't we love to be there? So that is the Dame Darcy Mermaid Tarot. All right, so now we're going to have a well-known deck, known by everybody. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time with it. I do have a side-by-side comparison with this deck and another deck that I'm going to show. This is the Modern Witch Tarot by Lisa Sturl. A female-centric deck, but there's some wonderful inclusiveness, diversity in here. I know many of you are well familiar with this deck, so we won't spend a lot of time. But, you know, just in case you're a newbie, now I will say there's not a lot of age diversity in here. I think she could be depicted as older, maybe because of her white hair, but, you know, maybe she's a platinum blonde. You don't really see the agedness to her, so I would say that's the one thing that's not really depicted in this deck. But other than that, you know, no complaints with this deck. It's wonderful. Some body diversity in it. Different races, skin tones. Again, body types. And look at the masks on them. That is so timely, isn't it? So, that is the Modern Day Witch Tarot by Lisa Sturl. Wonderful, wonderful deck. So glad I have it in my collection. All right, moving right along. We are going to go to the next deck. Look, I just made this tarot bag. And it's lined too. Had fun doing that. This is the This Might Hurt Tarot deck by Isabella Rotman. And this is the one I did the side-by-side with the Modern Witch Tarot. And it's on my channel, and you can find it. But this deck is compared, it has a similar vibe, but it's different. Of course, the artwork is very, very different, but it's got the modern, diverse, inclusive feel to it. Again, aged, any over 50 is depicted with the males. There's no females in this deck. So I was a little bit you know, that's my thing. Because age is something that is going to affect everybody. And if you're in a marginalized demographic, believe me, age is something that will marginalize you more. It's like, you know, another hit where you lose your voice or you're quieted. But yes, wonderful, wonderful inclusivity, diversity in this deck. Follows the Rider-Waite-Smith system. See, it's an older gentleman. There are no older females in this age category. But really does a good job otherwise. And that's the This Might Hurt Tarot by Isabella Rotman. Moving right along, we have the Light Seers Tarot. This is my Mass Market by Chris Ann Donnelly. And I think you get all the diversity in the more modern decks. The decks with modern depiction, because the artists are more aware when they're depicting a modern world. You know, all you have to do in most cases is look at the world outside your window. And there's all types of people, or like some people say, you know, when you go and buy a coffee at Starbucks, what do you see? Again, not, excuse me, not a lot of diversity in the age department for women. And I find that's the case even in the most diverse, inclusive of decks. Again, why is that? Because we're not deemed as beautiful? Our youthful beauty is gone? But what we have left over when our youthful beauty leaves us is, I think, so much more important. Our wisdom, our knowledge, our experience. But you see, the people in here are wonderfully diverse. Just not very, yeah, it's young. It's a very, very young deck. A little bit older here. But that is the Light Seers Tarot. I have a full walkthrough of this deck, of the indie version, and then I do a side-by-side. I also have a video doing a side-by-side of the indie and this mass market version on my channel. Okay, I'm going to zoom out just a little bit because the next deck is a big one. And you know what? It's another Mermaid Tarot by Lisa Robertson, illustrated by Julie Dillon. Mass Market, Llewellyn deck. And it's again, mermaids are fantasy, but they seem to live, at least in tarot, in a more perfect world than we do. I think maybe because it's a dream, it's a fantasy, but I think this deck shows some a little bit of body diversity, skin tone, race, for it being a fantasy deck. You know what I mean? It's more inclusive than you would think. I love this Hermit. This deck has been out for a while. Isn't she beautiful? Yeah, for a fantasy deck, you get different. It's just not all plain white centric. So it's another great diverse deck, and I think maybe it might be overlooked because it is a little fantasy mermaid deck, but it shouldn't be. All right, we just got, oh, not too many left. Not too many at all. The next would be The Relative Tarot by Carrie Paris. Now this set, come up, is both, in this box there's an oracle and a tarot deck. So we are going to pull out the decks. That's the tarot. And this is the oracle. Now the reason I pulled this one out, for it being Edwardian, Victorian photography collage deck, it is, you know, it's got some diversity in it. Now the oracle deck, she requested some of her backers on Kickstarter when she was doing this deck to send in pictures of their ancestors. So all in here, a lot of these cards are actual pictures of ancestors, family members. So this is the oracle deck. So I think there's a little bit more diversity depicted for, you know, this genre, this type of deck, which you usually don't see. And these are Carrie Paris's, the creator. Those are her ancestors right there in that card. I'd say most of it is white, but that's typical. But there is, you know, she did make an attempt to add a little bit more diversity for this type of genre of deck. So that's the oracle. Now we're going to look at the tarot. The Ten of Cups. Now you get your choice of Ten of Cups in this deck. But you see, there is some diversity. This is the tarot deck, the Relative Tarot. And she did make an effort. And I think she did a good job, really, for this genre. This older photography. And it's like, kudos to Carrie Paris. So if you like this type of collage work and this old imagery, which I love, this is probably as diverse as this type of deck goes. Look at the Magician. And there are a lot of extra cards that you can switch out. She does give you a lot of choices. I think you have several choices for the Lovers. There's quite a few famous people in the tarot deck. I think that's Lionel Barrymore, famous stage actor. I believe that's Queen Victoria's daughter, the Empress Frederick of Prussia. That's George Armstrong Custer. But really, for this type of a deck, I think there was an effort to make it as diverse as possible. Okay, I'm going to put this one up next. It is the new version, mass market version of the our tarot, and I recently just uploaded a full unboxing and my impressions of this deck, quality wise and whatnot, and I go through every card. But high marks for diversity. This is a female centric deck. These are historical notable women in history, some infamous, but you get wonderful diversity here. And if you want to see all the cards, please head over to my video, my walkthrough of this deck, because I will go through all the cards and you'll see the wonderful book. There is really a good mix in here. Corazon Aquino, Boudica. Now, this was an indie deck, and quite a few of the cards have been changed. And some were kept the same, but the artist changed the photo. Love Hattie McDaniel. All right. So, yes, not going to go through the whole deck, even though I do love the premise of this deck, and it is wonderfully diverse. Now, I'm going to say that this next one, the last one, and I'm going to zoom up again. Sorry if I bump. At least in my collection, the one that does a good job, the best job with depicting age, is this Everyday Enchantment Tarot by Poppy Palin. I believe she's British, and she's depicting everyday life in London or the UK. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that's what I think I know. This deck, and it is, I think it's a shipper deck, and yeah, it's got this double tray thing, so it is kind of hard to get cards out, but we'll just take a quick look. There's a grittiness, kind of, he's a little bit fancified here, but you know, I don't know a construction worker that looks quite like that. But these look like real people, except for her, maybe on Hollywood Boulevard. But I just love the realness of the artwork. You know, the bodies, the faces. It's fantastic, and I would say this deck comes closest to, you know, ticking the boxes, and this is my favorite lovers card of all time. I have not found one that I like better, because this is the ideal, right? Young love, kind of fantasy love back here with the swans, the dog, man's best friend, that kind of love. I love this. And to me, it's one of the best lovers cards out there. Now, this could have easily been made as a same-sex couple, but, you know, I think you get the general feeling of the kind of love, the lovers here in this card. But you see, it's, look at this, and there's age again depicted. And everyday activities. The cards are big. They are large. They are oracle size. But they, and some people I've seen have cut off the borders, but I'm not going to do that. I love the back. See, I'm totally in love with the back. And see, the, I love this death card. I truly, truly love this death card as well. Now, and it keeps me wondering, you know, is she's a relation, an older relation to this little girl. And sometimes they talk, I know as I've been brought up as a Mormon, and we were taught that sometimes the veil is so thin between very young children and where they came from, heaven, the spirit world, that they can remember. Sometimes they remember and speak of their time, and they talk of ancestors who they know, departed ancestors who they knew there. And but then once they hit a certain age, then they don't remember it anymore, because the veil has come down heavier. I wonder if this spirit is this woman at a younger age. You know, has she passed on and gone to her her perfect existence when she was strong, young, and vibrant, and has left the old body? There's a lot gets me thinking. I'm sorry. But you see, this card is just, it's the world outside, so to speak. And yeah, very thought-provoking deck. And it is one of my favorite. Honorable mention goes to Star Spinner Tarot, only because this is a fantasy deck and I do have a full walkthrough on my channel. But I'll pull it out. Look at that. I've got some body diversity here, which is a good thing. This is very fantasy figures. Different colored people, but you can pick up a little bit of a diversity here. You definitely can. But the reason I picked this, and it gets, you know, high marks for inclusivity, is because of the choices that you have for the Lover's card. You get 1, you get 2, 3, and 4, which I think is so fantastic. Very, very, I mean, it's wonderful to have that many choices for the Lover's card. The Bad Bitches Tarot by Ethany Dawn. Almost forgot this one. Now, it's an all-female deck, as you know, but wonderfully diverse. But again, I will say it is light on the age depiction, which I love this deck so much. But the fact that there isn't more a diversity in age, like different cycles. I mean, you can be a bad bitch at any age, correct? And this is one of the only cards that kind of, you know, depicts generations, because it's the Ten of Pentacles. But, and this one too, the Four of Wands. These are the two cards that have, you know, kind of a mature woman depicted, and I think that's it. And I just, you know, feel a little bit slighted, because it's almost as if you're saying, you know, you can't be a bad bitch, you can't be badass when you're older. Very young, very, very young. But I still love this deck. You know, I know buying a tarot deck and most oracle decks, I am not going to see, well, I'll see white women depicted, but I'm not going to see a mature, too many mature white women depicted in tarot decks. And like I said, that is something that is going to happen to everyone. It's an experience that is going to happen to everyone, no matter your gender identity, no matter your race. You know, we're all going to get older. So this does tick some boxes for diversity. The only thing, like I said, it's very, very, very young, but it doesn't detract from my love for this deck. And I do have a full unboxing of this deck too on my channel if you'd like to see it. Literary Witch's Oracle by Tasia Kitskaya. Anyway, I know I butchered it and I apologize. But as far as diverse decks, again, this is female-centric, dealing with female writers from different cultures, different races, different eras. And it is a fantastic oracle deck. Even if you, some people I know have said they don't know how to use this. I use it just, I've read the book and I've kind of gone into some authors that I don't know. I've kind of went back and Googled them up. A lot of these I do know, but a lot of them I don't, because they're from, yeah, different places, and it's just not the usual genre that I read, but trying to do better with that. But if you look at this deck, I love this deck. And I'm going to point out, this is usually depicted as a picture of, or a painting of Charlotte Bronte, not Emily, but, you know, they were all great writers, all the Bronte sisters. But if you look through this deck, I love this deck because it depicts notable writers from all different cultures, races, eras, and genres of writing. And there's no males, so, you know, they're not included. But as far as this genre, it is very inclusive. And this is just a great deck to have, even if you find a hard time finding a use for it, just because the energy it exudes and the artwork is so stunning. At least to me. You know, everybody likes different things, but it is a wonderful, wonderful deck. And I might add, very inexpensive. I think it's in about the $14 range. I think I got it, I pre-ordered it, so it was about $12. This deck is also made by the people, the publishers who did the new Tarot of the Divine. The cardstock is similar, the production value is similar, and for that money, you know, under 15 bucks, you can't beat it. But as you can see, just going through the cards, it is very diverse. And this is the last deck. You know, as I finish this video, when I post it, looking at my collection, I know I will find others. But that's just the way it is. Gertrude Stein. Virginia Woolf. Yeah, I'm just looking and love this deck. Love this deck. So there are some suggestions, and just to look at my more diverse and inclusive decks. I know this will evolve as time goes on, and as I become more aware of more decks and as they come out. So that is it for my inclusive decks. So I wish you all a wonderful day, and bye for now.